And welcome, everybody. This is Pastor Sherman, and this is This Week in Prophecy. Excuse me, a little bit of something in my throat there. I hope everybody's doing well today. It's the first Thursday or first Tuesday in the month. I think it is something like that. And want to welcome everybody to the broadcast. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, want to welcome you there also, and hope that you're enjoying it so far. Also, if you'd like to write to us, you can write to us at thisweekinprophecy@gmail.com. It's thisweekinprophecy@gmail.com. A lot of stuff to talk about here today, guys. I mean, a lot of stuff to talk about. And what would this show be like without my our co-host on the show, Aaron Newton? Aaron, how you doing today?
At least you didn't say we were criminals today.
No, partner in crime. No, yeah, I don't know. Didn't it sound cool? We're partners in
Did sound
partners
cool.
in. Yeah, it's always cool. So
It
Aaron,
did,
how
it did
things
sound
going today,
cool,
brother?
but oh yeah, good. Just
Yeah.
we were talking before the show about my need for more tool storage because I am a mechanic, and you know it's the oh gosh, you can't, like I was telling you, you can't just go to Lowe's and Home Depot and buy
No.
a toolbox for $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
You need something that's going to hold weight. Like I was saying, the wrench drawer
Mm-hmm.
is probably maxed out as it is. So,
Yeah.
but we're talking like 15 grand for what I want, and I just don't want to do it. So,
That's yeah. That's quite the haul. You've got to really just got to love. But that's what you do. I mean, that's what you do for a living, and that's the main part about the whole thing. That's what you do for a living, right?
yeah, when I retired from the army, I went back to fixing boats, and my dad had offered me his toolbox, and he had a humongous toolbox. I mean, it's 3 times the size of mine, and I think in 1985 or something, he paid $10,000 for his toolbox. And I said, "Well, how am I going to get it to my house?" He's like, "Well, you gotta." I used the forklift, and then I had to hire a tow truck, and like, I was like, you know what? Let me just take tools out of it, and then you can give it to one of my brothers. I should have took it. I should
Yeah.
have. It was top of the line, snap on. Like I should have took it,
Mm-hmm.
and here we are today. So
Yeah, that's it. But Dad always knows best, and so you actually
yeah.
come from a long line. You actually come from a long line of mechanics. So.
Oh, see, my dad was a mechanic. So, like his dad retired from the Marines. I don't know what he did after that, but my dad was a diesel mechanic. My brother uh, works on jets. My other brother does AC, um, and then I'm a Marine mechanic. Yeah, it's all with the hands. It's a gift, I feel like my dad, he was even better at fixing things than I was. We never ever sent anything or called anybody to fix anything. Whatever it was in the house, pops will take care of it. And then when I was visiting in the hospital, he started. He had some French doors that went into his backyard, and he cut the French doors out, started building the wall, and then that when that happened with him, so me and my brother went over and stuccoed it and finished doing the wall. So yeah, that's my family.
Well, cool. Well, very cool. And well, I'm so excited, man. I've not seen you in a while now. We try to see each other at least in person, because we both live in Vegas and
Yeah,
everything else. But we've had some crazy weather, eh? This weather
yeah,
has been
I love
like,
it.
we've got. Well, you've been up in the Northwest, the Great Pacific Northwest, and I don't know. We live in the desert, and I kind of like the desert. I mean, I really do, and it's just something I've gotten used to. And so we got, I think this May, beginning of May, we've
Hmm.
gotten more rain than I think for in any time any May in number of years. But you're digging this.
Yeah, I when I lived in Washington, it was like this every single day. I
Oh
I
gosh.
used to wear wet weather gear to work all winter, all summer, spring, fall, because
Mm.
every morning the roads were wet. And so I used to have my bed and the window in my bedroom right over
Mm-hmm.
my bed. And every morning I'd wake up and hear the water dripping off the thing. I love it. Like here, maybe 4 times a year, it'll pour for about
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes where it floods everything. And
Yeah.
then it won't rain for another 5 months.
Yeah. True. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of like it that way. Kind of like the dry, that kind of stuff. Anyways,
Yeah.
folks, I want to encourage you, if you're watching us online, just go ahead and write to us. You can jump in on the chat on This Week in Prophecy. This show is season 2, episode 19. 19.
Yeah, that's
And
oof.
yeah, it's been a long. I mean, we've been doing this for a little bit now. Aaron, uh, we've got a lot a lot to digest here, Dick, and I don't want to. So we've done a little housekeeping. Let's get into what the Lord showed you, because I know you actually have something that the lovely Miss Cecilia actually shared with you also. But
Oh,
let's go ahead and start with the first one that you sent me here, if that's where you want to start at.
okay, let me bring it up here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So I'll just say this about my wife. She doesn't dream very often, but when she does and remembers it and it's detailed like that, it's pretty powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
so I make her write it down, and I make her value these things because the things that she sends me are just like, wow, that's crazy. So the first one I sent you, this, let's see, super long. Is that the first one?
Mm-hmm.
5/6/25.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So we were in our home, and this is her dream, of course. So we were in our home, and it was the house that she grew up in New York. It was nighttime. I started to see huge fireballs missiling towards the earth, and it was targeting different areas in the United States. It had missed our home, but I could see more coming from the sky, and then it finally started getting closer, and one hit not far from us. I remember we were scrambling, and I hoped that we could not get hit because it would have been obliterated. And then there were people that worked with the government or the city. They were in our backyard, and they were looking for craters in the earth. And suddenly, another fireball torpedoed and hit part of our house. Suddenly, I was in a city. It was a small city. It was like a little mini Las Vegas. I remember I had a gun in my side pocket, and I remember I was not supposed to be carrying it. This, and I saw, at this I saw an auto shop and some other shops, and I happened to be trying to find my way to something in the city. I had to be careful and not to be found out, but then it was in the middle of the night and I was kind of hiding in this auto shop. I had to find my way out before the workers arrived in the morning. I managed to get out of there, and it was the morning time, and I remember I had to find a location where my mother was. I saw her, I ran to her, and she had our little dog with her. She was walking him, and we were trying to get a ticket to get to the city that would protect us from an impending Armageddon that was coming, and we were able to get a ticket. So we were able to get a ticket, and oh, we had to just wait until it was our turn to get, wherever they were going. And it was, what it looked like was a casino, but we had to go into this and we had to get in, and only so many people were allowed into the casino. Suddenly we knew it was time because people were rushing and they were all rushing in to get in. Even though we had a ticket, it was first come, first serve. So we were rushing with our dog. My mom and I were trying to get in the door, and they were letting people in that had the tickets. As soon as we got there, they shut the door on us. And then I was pounding, please let in my little dog. Or no, I was pounding, let us in. And they said, okay, we'll let you in. Just one more couple. And then they let us in, and then they shut the door. The rest of the people were outside. Then suddenly I saw these fireballs storming towards the earth. They were passing over us because we were in the city and we were deep enough where it just would pass over us. It was low. The elevation of the fireballs were low. We were safe. We were safe from them. I noticed that my dog wasn't there. Apparently, no animals were allowed to get into the city, even though it looked like we took him. He wasn't there with us. I wanted to go back for him. I would risk being obliterated. Next thing I know, it was just me and the other people, lots of people. Suddenly, we saw these people that wore black robes from head to toe, and they were all black, and they had black horses. And one stood out. He had a pale, off white, pearl like robe, like a knight, and he had a pointy hood that covered his head and face. He had brilliant rhinestones throughout his hood and robe. They were seeking people who got into the city but were not worthy to be in there. They were going after and gathering people. They spotted me and took me under their arrest. I said, "Where are you taking me?" "I'm good. I got in the city." Then I saw that if you had wrapped your arm with black and white PVC rings, they would leave you alone. So I wrapped my arm with the rings and was able to evade them. But then they realized what I was doing and they grabbed me again, and I asked them again why they were apprehending me. And I told them that I was good and righteous, and they said to me, "You are trying to deceive us, which is sinful. You are not righteous." And then I woke up. So I know this is pretty long, but let's start with the fireballs.
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember when we talked about fire falling from the sky? I think I talked about it a couple times on the show
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where people were getting saved, and the woman was drinking coffee, and there was in that dream. I remember there was actual fireballs and things on fire, and then there was people on fire for God who were getting saved, and
Okay.
they were on fire, but they weren't burning. But around them, things were actually burning. There was actually buildings on fire. Um, you know, so this is very long, and I think it's going to need a lot of prayer about it to get you know really what he's trying to say. I think he's trying to talk about a lot of things at once.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another dream, and I don't know if we talked about it. I had a dream, and I know I told you, but I don't know if we talked about on the show that there was a hole in the side of my house, like something had hit the house that I live in now. And the government came and they wanted to talk to me because they wanted to know how I knew things. Do you remember that one? And they took me to a room where they were questioning me for hours and hours. Like, how did you know this was going to happen? How did you know we were doing this? How did you know these things? And I was just like, God told me. But
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want to hear that. They thought I was like a spy or something. So I kind of thought that kind of, when I had that dream that all these puzzle pieces laid together and the woman that was standing next to me was laying these pieces on top of mine and they all fit together like a puzzle. When I hear these things, I'm like, and that's so, they're all little pieces of the puzzle of what's happening today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think so far? I mean, this is a lot.
Well, so I want to ask you a question about, and this is very interesting, is that so the first thing I thought was, hey, there are people who are watching this, and that somebody's probably watching this, and they're going, "Oh my gosh, this is speaking to me." So, and if that is you, the Lord's speaking to you about this whole thing, I want you to write something in our comment section here, and just let us know that this is something that the Lord's speaking on it. And so the second thing that came to my mind was, when did you have this dream? When did you
So
have
this one was last night.
Was last night.
Yeah,
so,
last night.
So do you think it's something for now, or do you think it's did you get the impression that it's something for the future? What do you think?
Well, I think about it like this, right? When God's, I'll give you a real good example of this after, but so when God, he gives a message to his prophet, right? Or let's say somebody who hears from him, speaks out his word, somebody who's, you know, it has to be confirmed eventually. It
Hmm.
has to be, there has to be people say the same thing, right? Because and the Bible says, "Let two or three prophets speak." Let them.
Yeah.
Are they all saying the same thing, right? Because God, you know, I'll say this: we have stories throughout the Bible of Samuel, and that was him, and he was Samuel and Elijah and stuff. But a lot of them prophesied about Jesus, the things to come, the people, uh, the generation, stuff like that. So I think this morning when I woke up, when I she tell me about this dream just like I usually do to her. Hey Cecilia, wake up! You gotta hear this. But today it
Hmm.
was her telling me about this. So when I drive to work every morning, I listen to this one lady, and I've listened to her for a long time, and I have the discernment is telling me like this is real. This is not um, the flesh speaking. This is actually God speaking through somebody.
Uh-huh.
And she was talking about the exact same thing. So, what she was talking about was the cities that the elite has built to hide themselves during something
Okay.
bad.
Okay.
Not only something that is the fire of God, but also but something they've created.
Okay.
So, you know, there has to be a confirmation. There has to. If a pastor has a vision about his church, it's got to be there's got to be a confirmation somewhere. So this is I feel like this is confirmation. Now if it's this time exactly,
Yeah.
I don't know God's timing on things, because
Sure.
you know sometimes it's like the next day I find something out that like I just dreamt about that. But we're talking about dreams 4 years ago, that still have come to pass or not, or we saw them in the natural, and it wasn't the way we thought it was going to be. But
Yeah.
I think we're getting close, like in the next couple of years. The Bible says that in the end, right, there will the knowledge of God's glory, right, will be everybody will be able to see it. I
Sure.
can't quote exactly how it's said, but
Yeah.
and a lot of people say, well, that's preaching of the word, but the Bible says um, the word, the doctrine, what we've learned, the preaching of Christ and Christ crucified. But that specifically said the knowledge of God's glory,
Yeah.
right? In dreams that I have or visions, I see His glory as like this river of colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is um, what happened on Pentecost, right? I think that when we see those things happening throughout the entire earth and everybody's seen it and known it, this is the knowledge of God's glory. Do you
Okay.
know? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because
Um,
it says the knowledge of God's glory. God's glory. He poured out His glory on these people at Pentecost. The Holy Spirit. So, anyways,
yeah.
I just
So let me ask you another question. So you said that this
yeah.
home was a home in New York City, or was in New York?
It says that we were in our home. And it was the house, my old home in New York City, yeah, or the Bronx or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know that she was in New York, but we were living in that home, and
Oh,
then she
let me
had
ask.
to leave to get onto what's up.
Oh, let me ask you a question real quick. Was this Cecilia's
Yeah,
dream or was this yours?
yeah. No, this is Cecilia's dream.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So, um, so I guess
No, this is her
so.
dream last night.
Yeah. I guess the better the person to talk to about this would actually be Cecilia. Because
Yeah.
really, what does it mean to her? Because it's something that this has meaning. This was something the Lord gave to her. So, um, but I thought that some things that stick out to me in the vision
hmm hmm
are when did she have it? Where is it at? You know, um, the that kind of thing, and some of the symbolism in it, the fireballs coming down, um, the people, the
Mhm.
men in robes, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff sticks out to me, and makes you kind of go,
Yeah.
well, what do you mean? I mean, these people in robes they could be judges, right? They could be. We've got, especially nowadays, we've got these people who are judges or Supreme Court justices, those kind of people, and they're wearing robes. They're wearing this kind of thing. So uh, so part of it weighs down. I'm going to pick out one thing. It says, I know it's just like me and other people, lots of people, and suddenly we saw these people that wore black robes from head to toe, and they had
Mhm.
black horses, and one stood out. So um, I would ask her, does that mean anything to you? I mean, really, does that mean anything to you? Um, I can see right now that these are judgments, because this is starting to fall in line with the four horsemen, right? That we talk
Mhm.
about in the book of
Mhm.
Revelation. The pale horse. I saw that. I heard that. I don't know where it's at in here, but I did hear you say that. Um, the
It's right
black
after that,
horse,
actually. What you
right?
read.
Is it right after that?
Yeah,
That
it's right after.
section?
That's the one that stood out.
Yeah, and that's what sticks out to me. So, which would tell me there's judgment there, because those are. I mean, it's pretty in your face on that. So, is this talking about
Well,
judgment? What do you think?
so there was another one that I had read one of her dreams a while back, and
Yeah.
it was about her being in a walled off city, and
Okay.
there was a fountain with a leopard, and it was purple and gold, and it wouldn't let her leave, but it knew that she wasn't supposed to be there, like she wasn't part of these elites who are hiding, and they had
Mm.
taken us to a theater, and all the
Okay.
men were wearing black robes with the Baphomet symbol on the front of them, and they were taking away Christians and torturing them,
Oh.
and they had
Okay.
taken me away while she was still in there, and
Yeah.
and then like she escaped but went into this city that was, you had to get a shot in the forehead, and it changed you back to when you were like 18.
Oh.
And yeah, so that maybe I should have read that one first, but it's kind of like, these her story is so much longer and drawn out, but
Mm-hmm.
these, the fireballs falling from the sky, the house with the hole in the side of it, the forever tickets, all these things, like mine were so close together, and like
Yeah.
hers are so drawn apart, but it's like I feel like God is confirming the things that we've been talking about. Every once in a while he'll give her this just long crazy dream, and like
Yeah.
he's confirming these things. Now, is it coming soon? I think 2027 we're gonna really see like just the glory fall. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just speculating, and I haven't heard that. So,
No.
anyways, I
And
thought it was real in depth to talk about.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and so and this, that the Lord uses people's temperaments, uses people's, their experiences. When He speaks through them, it'll generally reflect that. It'll reflect who they are, what they are. Um, Even when Cecilia prays, she prays much longer, much bigger, much more wordy. That's just the way she is. That's just, and so this really, when you first sent this to me, I went, man, this is really long. It was really kind of out of character, and I went, wow, that's,
Yeah.
and then so that's why I asked. I go, wait a minute, whose vision is this? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wrote in the text. I'm like, these are Cecilia's dreams, but it was a little short one there.
Yeah. No. It's,
Yeah, she.
yeah.
it. And you're right. That we're individually and
Mm-hmm.
wonderfully. We're individuals. He speaks to us how we can understand, and
Yeah.
I think, like you said, I don't let her pray over our food anymore because she has to go back and take it to the microwave. So, like when it comes to the meal, I'll pray, but I don't let her pray over the meals anymore because we have to
it
go reheat it up.
you got to reheat the food. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this
I'm
is,
like
I mean,
Cecilia, you gotta.
so Aaron, I think this is a great illustration though of of how, and we talked about this before, is that God will use, He'll use your experiences, He'll use your temperament, He'll use the way you speak, your experiences that you've had in life, and then just like in the writing in the Bible, Paul wrote a certain way, Matthew wrote a certain way, and you can tell that it is that person writing. There's a vein that goes, there's a stream how they write. David, the same thing. He was a psalmist, so you can really tell the things that he's written. And this right here is um, definitely you could tell somebody else had this vision. And so I think
Oh
that
yeah, that's her.
just by and, yeah, and I think that this is a good thing that most people are going, oh, I've got to be exactly like that person, or I got to be exactly
No,
like
no.
that guy. I've got to use the exact same words that this guy did, or I'm not prophetic, right? Go, no, that's not true at all, because we just went through. I mean, this is very in depth. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of things going on here, and it's because that's who Cecilia is, right?
Hmm.
She tends to be that way. So it doesn't make her any better, doesn't make her any worse, doesn't make her more prophetic. You know, it just means that that's
Yeah.
the way the Lord shows her things.
Oh no, did I lose my camera?
Yes, you did. Yeah, you kind of froze
Okay.
there.
All right.
Well, what
Okay,
kind of?
hold on.
I'm
I think
I'm
it
gonna
was
go ahead
stuck.
and
It got, hold on, it
go
got
ahead.
pulled out. Sorry.
Yeah, you go do your thing, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'll talk to me for just a second while we're waiting for you. Um,
Okay.
so this is very interesting though. That we've but I can still hear you. But just go ahead and do your thing, and uh, I'll wait till you come back. There we go. All right.
All right.
I think
We're
you're
back.
back.
Sorry, I accidentally
Okay.
pulled it out of the
No.
computer.
Yeah. Not a problem. Um,
But
but
you know, I think you're right. He speaks to us individually, and this is definitely Cecilia. This
mm-hmm,
is her. These are like anything I've shared on the show that she's shown me is like this. Oh my
mm-hmm,
goodness,
mm-hmm.
like very in depth and very symbolic.
Very symbolic. A lot of symbolism in here, and but it's funny because um, even though there's a lot of symbolism in here, there's still a you can still take away a lot of that stuff and go, this is where I think the Lord is. you know, you when you hear about black horses, pale horses, dapple horses, that kind of, you go, oh, wait a minute, where does that where have I heard that from? Oh, that's in the book of Revelation, and those are judgment. These people are judging things. Okay, that's probably what they're talking about here, because that's the way God would say, okay, that's probably what you understand. That's probably why He put it there. The same thing if He said something about wheat, and He was talking to people who were in an agricultural area. People would go, oh, I understand that. That makes more sense. That kind of thing. So I like it. I like that a
Well,
lot.
and it also goes back to what you said. Like, you can when you read the books of the Bible, you can tell the different authors. You know, I mean, God was very specific in saying, "Hey, this don't do this. Don't eat meat sacrificed to idols.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual immorality is a sin. This is a sin. This is a sin." And that's it. He laid out. I mean, there's more, but he laid it out to you. Look, this is what you have to avoid. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't say that because I was convicted of something I needed to get rid of, that's now everybody should do that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that we could talk about that later, and I think that that happens a lot. And I heard, I was listening to you and Tommy before I went in the shower, and you were talking about how the word not being preached enough, and and I think
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to just everybody calm down and just let him speak to us. I mean, there's just
Mm-hmm.
anybody can speak to anybody. I'll give you a good testimony if you want to hear. It's kind of
Sure.
like what
Go
we're
for it.
talking about.
Uh-huh.
So the other day, I don't really give personal prophecies to people, or if the Lord tells me to say something, I'll say it. And so there was two people at my that I know that this happened to, and one guy, he's pastor at a Lutheran church. I've known him for a couple years now, and one day, I don't really think he believes, or he still thinks that these things are going on today. And so I had told him, I was just, it was weird. Like the Holy Spirit was like, ask him if he has something to tell you, And so I'm like, you have something to tell me? And he's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. So all day long, I'm just, what do you have something? I know what it is. Tell me. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I asked him like after the fifth time, and he goes, okay, all right, I had this dream and it was so detailed. And I always listened to you talk about your stuff. And I never like really put much stock in it. And then I had this dream and it was like kind of like this, and it was about the glory of God falling in people and stuff. And I'm like, well, see, all this time, now he's talking to you, you know? So now what are you gonna do? You're gonna listen, you're gonna accept it, and you're gonna pray about it. And then there's this guy I know, and I walked by him and I could feel just it was weird. Like I felt something sad. I don't know, it wasn't sad, it was more like a frustration or something, as you really move along with this, you feel that on people sometimes. You can feel when they're angry or before they even say anything. Even when they're trying to put on this face of like, "Hey man, what's up?" Inside you can tell what's going on, but um I walked by and I felt this like frustration. And so I went in the other room and I felt the Holy Spirit said, "I need you to tell him that what he's going through is only temporary. It's okay. He's going to be fine." And I was like, yeah, I don't really even know if this guy believes in you. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about him like that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna step out in faith. And I went up to him like, you need to know that what you're going through right now is just very temporary. Okay. You'll be fine. Everything's gonna be okay. And he's like, what do you mean? And how do you know that? And I'm like, I just leave it at that. And so I left. And then he comes and he goes to somebody else, a friend of mine who watches the show. And he's like, Aaron came up to me and he said this. And I don't know how he knows anything. And he goes, "Oh, Aaron? Oh, you need to listen to that man. He's anointed. Like, oh man, you should listen to his podcast." And so, so he came up to me and he's like, I've been feeling a little down. I'm like, oh, I'm just listening to him. I'm not even talking. I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, just I'm like, look, I'm not gonna lie. It was the Holy Spirit that told me to say that to you, and so
Yeah.
you should know. And he goes, I grew up in a house that were Christians, but I'm not really like that right now. And I'm like, well, maybe he's
Mm,
talking to you. Maybe you should listen. And
maybe
so
you should
the
listen.
next day, he got evicted from his house,
Really?
and him and his wife were on the next day,
Wow.
like
Really?
the very next day.
Wow, Aaron.
So he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, I what you told me, like I'm okay because you said everything's temporary. It's gonna be." I'm like, what happened? He's like, "I got kicked out. We don't have a place to stay. We're gonna find an apartment." I'm like, "All right, well." I offered him if he wanted to stay with me, and he declined it. So,
Yeah.
but he goes, "I have to tell you something." And I didn't say this the first time, but 2 days ago, I had asked God to show me something. I cried out I wanted to know God. And I'm like, see, he answered your prayer. Maybe he's been talking to you this whole time. You just haven't heard it because this is not what normal, people do. Or they
Mm-hmm.
think they're hearing him, but it's not, whatever it is. I'm like,
Yeah.
see, he answered your prayer. He said, "Hey, man, I heard you. Don't worry, but
Yeah.
something's going to happen. You're going to be okay. Don't worry about it." And it's like, I think about this, like we're talking, you guys were talking about preaching the gospel, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Sure.
oh my goodness. It's like, how quickly that man believed, like, oh my goodness, God is talking to me. It was
Oh
the
yeah.
power of God
Oh yeah.
that instantly turn
Instantly.
people. Paul says, "I didn't come with lot, with the
Eloquent
elegance of speech.
words.
I came to
Yeah.
show the power of God." And
That's
this
it.
is what's like, this is not my thing. My thing is this, like what we talk about here, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling it more and more.
Sure.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's something that needs to be corrected. If it's something that needs to be corrected, people don't want to hear it. Okay, fine. But I said
That's the
it.
way it is.
You know what
But
I mean? I
just leave it
can't
that way.
I can't just, yeah, here it is, and then
Yeah.
people
And
get angry, whatever.
yeah. Yeah,
You
but
know,
sometimes I
God,
think sometimes you mentioned something about this guy that you don't do that a lot. I mean, you don't give personal testimony or personal prophetic words, that kind of stuff. But but when you have, it's almost like the Lord is saying, "See, maybe it's something for you, and maybe it's something that is for." Because a lot of people now that are hearing this from you now, Aaron, as we're talking about it, and some of them might have heard, a podcast I did before this one, called Christ and Culture, that we need to be that living epistle for people, because I think this in context, it was basically I was given a stat on a poll that was taken. They were talking about people, how much they believe truth. Is there an absolute truth? And that people are taking a lot. They're not getting as much. The majority of people don't believe that the Bible is true. They're getting it from other sources. And my question was, why? Is it because we're not talking enough? And maybe the Lord's telling us, guys, we need to be a little bit more. We just need to be out there, just because we're not the ones who are going to get people saved, right? But we're the ones planting seeds, and God wants to partner with us to plant seeds in people. Then all of a sudden somebody else comes in and waters it. Another person harvests that thing. So I think it's a good thing.
Well, I think you're right, and it's, I don't think it was because I was disobeying what he was saying. I think this is the glory to glory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first it started with this, and he said, say this, or Saturday mornings, I need you to say these things, because it plants that seed, right? When I, like 4 years, what is it, 2 or 3 years ago, I was telling you, I'm not, like, a Saturday morning, I went back and looked at all of them. I was talking about how God is going to tear down, and he's going to start with the lowest, or he's going to start from the highest office to the lowest, right? To the lowest dog catcher. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, he's talking about the government. He's going to start shredding all these people. But, it starts first in the house of God. And we've been seeing these things happening all over the place, right? But, and so I spoke about it, and it was a couple years ago, but it planted that little seed that said, when you see this, if you take it, if you heard it and you listen, you pay attention, but when you saw this happening, you're like, oh my goodness, I remember this like 2 years ago. It was, God is planting those seeds all along the way, whether we hear it or not. He's been planting them. And I, with that, what you were just talking about, the preaching of the word, I think we need to, like, look, where does that start, right? Like, we know that when a generation comes out of Egypt, right, they're broken. Okay, they don't want to. They're tired of eating manna. I want meat. I want this. I want that. Right, and they're not really passing along what you and I are seeing today to their children. Right, so it's not that I'm gonna fix anybody. It's that we need to figure out how to get the home stable so the word can start in the home from the youth and move forward. And then we won't have these kind of things where I don't believe that or whatever. The numbers would be so much lower, because we have to figure out how to get this next generation to start in the home, right? I know the people are older, but I get it. You got to wait for that generation almost to, like, go away, the one that kind of not get pushed to the side or die or whatever, but just kind of like, all right, it's time to start with the younger, because those people are going to teach their children and their children and their children. If we start with the old, those kids are already out of the house and grown. They don't want to hear it anymore.
That's true. It's funny because
start with the youth.
It's funny. The Bible is so pure. It's so truthful that it says that if you teach your child in the way, train up your child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they'll come back. I mean, the principle is there that they'll come back. So there's always hope for those older kids. But you're right. I think we're living in a generation right now where They were talking about Generation Z, I believe it is, Generation X or Z. Which one? I forgot which ones they are. There's so many different ones now.
Yeah.
But they're talking about how this next generation coming up, or the generation that's in their 30s right now, that they're going to be the richest, they're going to be the most impactful generation that we're likely to see. And I think that might hold true spiritually too, if we can get a hold of them. If we can get a hold of them, because this is also the generation that's that digital generation. They're that generation that you wouldn't think is a spiritual generation, and yet I think they are going to be. I think they're going to be incredibly spiritual. But once again, there's a lot of things out there vying for their attention, right? And there's so much out there that's right now, and it's not going to slow down. It's going to continue. The Bible talks about in the end days, these last days, there's going to be an increase in a lot of stuff, right? An increase in wickedness, increase of knowledge, an increase of all this stuff that's going on. And I'm telling you right now, it's continuing. I see it all the time. And so I think but there's so much hope for this generation right now. I think you're right.
Yeah. It's, I think, well, it really is. He's gonna capture them. Now it's up to us to steward them. I don't need to go out and capture the people. God's gonna capture them. I mean, of course, I'm always gonna, like just like that guy. I'm like, hey man, did you have you been praying now? Like, yeah, me and my fiance have been praying every. You need a Bible? Yeah, I do. Okay, I'll bring you one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna stop doing that. But
no, you can't.
I mean, we just need. This is such a move of the Spirit, right? We need to not um, live in how the Spirit moved in the 50s or the 70s. We need to live how the Spirit is moving today. Because if you try to, if we have tent revivals everywhere, well, that's how he worked in the 50s. Okay, but right now we need to have internet revivals because that's how he's moving today. We got to get in line with the Spirit, how he's moving today. And I think that's
sure.
The older generation wants to do tent revivals because when they were young, that's what they did, and they saw the move of the Spirit. And this happens throughout the generations, right? We got Azusa Street, and we got this and this and this. Yeah, prayer and obedience is going to cause what you need. But let's not get stuck in how we did things in the past. We got to figure out
I think you're right. Sure.
how to move today with the Spirit. And
isn't that interesting? Because you know what? We had the technology that we have, today is akin to what the technology was at the time of the first century church. We came out of a time where they were, blazing their own trails, making their own ways around. And then the Romans came along, right? And they said, hey, guess what? We're going to pave these roads, right? And so that's how the gospel became proliferated. It was so. What is the new Romans road now? What is the new way of getting things to people? And I think you're right. The internet is huge. I know I've been a part of it ever since it became anything, and have watched it. And yet, there's so much. There's an even further front lines, right?
Yeah.
Is it video? Is it text? What is that new latest greatest thing that can be utilized to touch people?
Well, look, I love history, right? Ask me anything about World War II, I'll tell you. World War I. Like at these times in history, there was just such, like what happened here? Well, let's look at that, right? The Roman road. The Romans were so smart because their soldiers were not just soldiers, right? They were also builders. They were farmers. They were engineers. So when they went somewhere, they conquered, oppressed, and then used their other skills to do all the rest of the stuff, right? Let's build roads. We're going to build some infrastructure. We're going to show you how to make running water. Okay, so then let's look 1500s, right? So there was a dark period where nothing really came good. I mean, there was things, but uh, once Rome was sacked and all this information and wealth was burnt by the Visigoths, we went into this dark period
Mm-hmm.
until one day you have these things. All of a sudden, somebody invented a printing press. And so what happened? Martin Luther decided, I'm going to rewrite the Bible in another language, right? But then the printing press was the new Roman road, right? Here we go. We can pump out these Bibles and all these languages, and nobody can stop us. Nobody's going to tell us no. It has to be in Latin and only be read by a priest. Now I can get my own. Then newspapers, all these things were pumped out. Information started coming. So I bet they thought, at that time, all the knowledge will increase, right? Just like you said, right? In the end times, knowledge will increase. Well, now we got to teach people to read, and we gotta we gotta give them these books. So it takes time, right? Time overcomes time.
Yeah.
Now we're at this period where the generation has fallen off again. We were in a 4 years of the dark ages where,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's fine, no, China was blah blah blah. These people are just they're looking to escape persecution. 18 million people are looking to escape persecution from their country. We got to let them in here and take care of them, right? So we were in a mini dark ages, and I remember seeing that all these people were prophesying about Trump's gonna be elected president the second time, and I really believe that they were listening to Kim Clements, and I didn't have an opinion on it. God didn't say, yeah, this is going to happen. But when I looked at his prophecies, he had said, uh, here's this man's going to be president. And then he said, Jezebel, are they're going to, uh, he wants to put a witch in the White House. And everybody
Oh.
thought, oh, that's Hillary Clinton. That's Hillary Clinton. That those days are past. But you can't look at his prophecies linear. You have to look at them each individual. So you got, Donald Trump getting elected,
Mm-hmm.
then Jezebel driving away Elijah, the prophets, and even Elijah. And then I said, come back. And then I will sit him in the seat of the president and I will fill him with the Holy Spirit. You had a gap there. If we didn't go through that
Mm-hmm.
time of that,
Yeah.
that mini dark ages,
Yeah.
nobody would believe what you and I are talking about today.
They
So
sure wouldn't. Yeah,
you
sure.
can look at history, look at
Mm-hmm.
how things changed, how they took it then, and how can we apply that today. I mean, it's just amazing. We just over and over, circle after circle.
Yeah, I think you're right. You are.
Things through that.
For those of you, this might be the first time you're checking out the show. I'm Pastor Sherman. This is Aaron Newton, and this is This Week in Prophecy. I want to thank you all for being a part of the broadcast. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, go ahead and get in on the conversation, folks. Go ahead and let us know what's going on. If you've got a question, love to hear a question from you or something like that. So don't feel like you can have to sit there on the outside. We will answer your question in real time. Okay, so go ahead and ask us, or you can write to us at thisweekinprophecy@gmail.com. Aaron, we're going to run out of time here, but I want to get to this. Next vision you had. And this one is February 24th or February 4th.
Hold. So this, let's see here. Yeah, that's the 4th of February, 2024. Okay. So, yeah, so I was walking in somewhere in the United States. It was a nice city, and it was me and my wife. We were walking. It was, just beautiful city. Like, you know, I know it's in the United States, but think of like a clean Paris, right? Or a clean Berlin, Doesn't smell like sewers or whatever. Anyways, and so as we're walking through the city, we get to the other side of the city and it starts like you can see the buildings are deteriorating, things are crumbling, things are going down. We started to notice how it started to, kind of deteriorate. And then all of a sudden it was like we were in a third world country, like no roads, everything was dirt, everything was just like the roofs of houses were made with car hoods. There was trash in the streets. Everything was broken. It was just like, the other side of the border there. we had gone. So we had to go down this spiral staircase, and the first step was very steep. So you had to kind of like sit down and like tippy toe down into there. And So we got down. There was no easy way to get down. First step was so steep. There was no easy way to get down, and there was one handrail. And when I got down to the first step, I pull on the handrail to hold myself, and it just popped out of the wall. So I had to put it back in. And the whole time I'm thinking, imagine how many children had fallen down here or got down here and was stuck. Finally, I got down and I was waiting for my wife to come down. I could see she was angry. It was difficult. Right next to that area was a shopping center. And inside, like when we went in the shopping center, in the middle of this third world country, there was this beautiful shopping center. And I went into like a boat shop. I walked in and it was beautiful. It was big and wide, and I really woke up. And I had to say this with the children. Uh, it was. I feel like there's going to be a lot of exposure with child trafficking. Like we crawled down this hole, but yet how many had fallen down in the hole? Imagine you're crawling down the rabbit hole, but imagine how many people are actually down stuck in that hole when you get down there. And it wasn't easy, and it was hard, and there was things that tried to stop us along the way. But once we found our way, it was like in the middle of this third, really disgusting or gross looking place, there was something beautiful. Something. So
that is interesting.
I just
because you said that you really felt like the Lord was showing you that this had to do with child trafficking.
Yeah, that it was weird. Like I don't know how to explain it was just like a round hole in the street, but you had to climb down to get into the next part of the city. And I just saw children falling in there, in my dream. Wow. Like I could see how many kids had fallen into that hole. And I remember as I'm trying to get down, it's hard to get down in there. There was a lot of things that were that made it difficult for us. Like the handle came out and I had to put it in and hold. And I could tell my wife was frustrated with it, like this is ridiculous. And the whole time I'm just like, man, I can't imagine the pain and suffering of these children going down the hole. So, yeah.
And you mentioned really that Cecilia that she was angry because it was difficult right next to that area where she was shopping at, or
right next to that area was a shopping center.
Yeah, and do you think there's a lot of people? Because since you showed you that there's a lot of people with that attitude also, that they're thinking, well, you know what, right next to a really nice place could be this happening right next to it.
Well, yeah, or
and people are unaware of it.
They don't want to. They don't like. It doesn't bother my life. What do I care?
Sure.
Kind of thing. Or something beautiful came out of us crawling down that hole. That's kind of tough, right? Shopping center, people go in and they want to do their stuff, and they're just kind of like, whatever. They're not really paying attention to the rest of the world because, shopping centers are like an old mall, is enclosed. You go in and you're in there, and that's all you see is stores. But was it something beautiful was actually going to come out of that tough climb down the hole,
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah,
well. We're definitely. I know that now you have this in 2024. This vision.
Yeah, that was February 4th of February 20. So the beginning of last year.
Yeah, and we've seen this it's definitely in our country. I think our country leads the world in child trafficking. We definitely lead the world in child pornography, and these places could be set up any place. And I know people are probably hearing this right now, and they're saying, you know what? I know of this. I've seen this before. I've heard of this, and I allude back to this. People watching us online. it's because I really believe that people are going to be seeing this at some point, and they're going, you know what, I've heard of this, and it's touching my heart, it's pricking my heart. That have I been? Could I have prevented something like this? Do I know something like this? Should I be praying for something like this? Should I be holding my kids even closer? You know, and it's bringing an awareness to something that is definitely something the Bible talks about, that we're supposed to be protecting these kids. You know, we're that they're not throwaway kids. You know what I mean? These are yes, you have a life to live, right? Yes, you can go shopping. Yes, you can do this, but don't be so unaware, so oblivious to the fact that there's people that are being, while you're shopping, having fun, that there's people out there that are being trafficked.
Well, I think you made an interesting point when you said pornography, because the most, let's say, they fund their child trafficking through the pornography. Right? And somebody said this the other day, and I heard it, and I thought, wow, that's really good. If you are watching pornography, oh man, what did he say? I can't say it. You're either watching, you're watching something you shouldn't be watching, or you're watching a crime scene. Like you don't
watching
know,
a crime scene.
You know, so but the funding, like those men who make those videos, or women or whatever, they're not good people. Okay, they're not doing something that's good for you.
No.
There's way more nefarious, like, back in the 80s or 90s or whatever, when the mafia was real prevalent in New York, right? They would always protect the people in their neighborhood. They didn't let any crime in their neighborhood because they didn't want attention. But behind the scenes was gambling, prostitution, money laundering, all these things.
Sure.
But yeah, they made it like, their neighborhoods were the best because they didn't want the attention around their house.
Sure.
So you got to know that everything behind something like that is always bad. Always
bad. Yeah, it's never a good thing. Yeah. No matter. So, it's definitely something we want to definitely keep in prayer about, because of all the things that we are called to do, protecting these kids it's one of the biggest things. I mean, it really is, and if we think that it can't come to our neighborhood, it probably is in your neighborhood. It probably already is there. And
you're right. But I want to say something real quick, just something something good. So during this 100 days, right? This 100 days of the president, he dedicated the country back to God. I have to say this. This was amazing. When the English, not the Spanish, because the Spanish, we talked about that not too long ago, where they landed on in Florida. First thing they did, we're going to have a mass. Well, when the English came here in Virginia, they dedicated the land to preaching the gospel, spreading the gospel to the inhabitants. That was what they did when they came. They stepped on, and we're going to dedicate this land to God and preach the gospel. And so, Trump, he honored that and made a day out of it. Now it's the dedication of God, from the 100 days. I thought that was amazing. Nobody has done anything like that. We keep talking about, is Trump saved? Oh my goodness. What does a saved person? What does a saved Christian look like, Sherman?
Yeah, no, he's got to prove. He's got to prove a little bit more to me. No, he doesn't have anything to prove to me.
He looks like a broken, tattooed lip ring. Somebody who cried out in the dark night, "God help me." That's what a saved Christian looks like to me.
You know what? I'll tell you, he looks like a guy who almost got a piece of his ear shot off, almost got his head blown off, and he had something like that had to happen to him, because anything else, I don't think really would have gotten to him.
Yeah, well, even that, like, oh my goodness, that is what God says. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Don't be in fear. He stood up and said, "You know what? This ain't happening." And it's all throughout the Bible. Don't be afraid.
It is.
There it is. There's your example.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, we got to let you go, brother. I appreciate you, man. Once again, the Lord is using you big time. in the prophetic realm, and can't wait to see what God is going to do next week, huh?
Yeah,
should be good. Praise God. Hey, give your lovely wife a big hug and a kiss.
All right, man.
And thank her. Maybe we could get her on the show.
You know what? She got to get off of work earlier. I'll drag her in one day. Oh, during the summer, for months.
Yeah, during the summer. There you go. All right, sounds good.
We'll have
all right, brother.
Ray on.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. All right, brother.
Bye.
Bye. And thank you, folks, for being a part of the broadcast once again. Once again, if you are, if you've been watching the show and you'd like to get in on the conversation online, definitely get in online with us. This Week in Prophecy. We're in season 2. Just check it out. The show will actually come up and it'll tell you, hey, it's live right there. Get in on the conversation or leave a comment on any of the shows that you listen to them all. Yeah, go ahead and listen to all of the shows and then leave a comment on each one of the shows. We'd love to hear from you. Anyways, this has been Pastor Sherman Ray for This Week in Prophecy. Guys, check out the show on Spotify, on Godstream TV, and on Apple Podcasts. Any place where you can get podcasts, you can actually check it out. Once again, this has been Pastor Sherman Ray. We will see you again next week for more of This Week in Prophecy. Bye-bye.